Hi, I am Justine Nolan. I am based at the University of New South Wales at the Faculty of Law in Sydney. In thinking about the future of business and human rights, there are three issues that are top of my agenda for something that we need to address in the short term. One is looking at unpacking the concept of human rights due diligence and what that means in practice for business. Second is linking up the silos of thinking and practice around climate change and business and human rights. And thirdly is how to leverage the influence investors have to ensure that there are better human rights practices in business. On the first one around human rights due diligence, it's a concept that has got a lot of attention in both law and in thinking about business models, but there's still a lot to understand about what it means in reality and how it might actually be incorporated as part of a business as usual approach, what it means to prevent and both redress human rights issues that are impacted by business. Climate change is the issue of our time, but for too long I think that there's been a silo of practice between sort of human rights scholars and environmental scholars, and businesses often address human rights issues separately from climate change. But some of the main, massive sectors like extractives and fashion, are some of the biggest violators around issues around climate change, and also have the biggest role to play in prevention. And so we need to think about climate change very much as a human rights issue and integrate those working together on actions to address it. And thirdly, the question around the role of investors. Investors have started to get more focus in this area, but there's still a lack of specificity around how investors assess and account for human rights practices, how they judge businesses, how they rank them, what the S in ESG really means in terms of metrics around that, and what is the leverage that investors have and how much should they be using it to impact human rights in relation to business. So those are the three issues that I think we should focus on. In terms of the current crisis that we're facing, in terms of the economic fallout around COVID-19, one of the biggest issues I think in terms of the business and human rights movement is needing to incorporate human rights as part of a business as usual model. Because what you find a lot of the times when economics crises hit is that things like human rights, or what companies might term their sustainability departments or CSR, are considered sort of extraneous and not part of a business as usual and part of the core operations of the business. So those areas might get cut, or staff might lose their jobs in relation to that, and business starts to lose a focus on these issues. So I think if we get anything, if there's any silver lining coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, it's to think about that we need to incorporate human rights as a core part of our business operations. And we also need to think about the sustainability and diversity of supply chains, whether it be supply chains that start in your backyard or ones that stretch across the globe. And that sustainability needs to be a core consideration in terms of thinking about how supply chains work. Thanks.